very constructive meeting I think we had yesterday, and certainly look forward with our Chamber of Commerce as a key state sector group. Very much looking forward to the interaction with them. You know, I think yesterday was actually good, folks. Don't you think? I think it was a really good meeting yesterday.
So who's in control of the mute buttons on this thing?
I reckon. Amy, I'm here, but my video's just not on right now.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Angela, Amy, so just record
Absolutely.
me. Obviously
Noted.
present. Okay, great. Thank you. I'll go back on mute, and thank you, Ewan, for noting that we are streaming across the city. That's fantastic. Cheers.
Always here to help, Martin.
Thank you, my dear friend Ewan.
Did you say we're all here to help, Martin?
Yes.
Gosh, it's quiet, isn't it? I hate silence. Silence is my enemy. Someone say something. Someone do something funny.
I was just thinking that you'll be hating that, Mark.
Oh, duh.
We've noticed that about you, Bunting, that you hate silence.
Not necessarily my friend, I'll give you that.
It must have kept you awake on days when you're on the radio. I mean, I guess you just you can't sell silence.
Yeah, like when you first start out, you do the midnight to dawn show, and so you force yourself to stay awake just to keep the records playing, and it was all manual. But then, of course, you go to bed trying to get to sleep, and of course, when it's silent, you think, dead air, and you just, whoa. So you get conditioned to not necessarily liking silence so much. But that's all right.
Mark, a very, very wise woman once told me when I first started council, if I'm ever been interviewed on the radio, don't fill the silence.
Yeah.
Because that's when politicians get into trouble. They keep talking.
Well, someone taught me once that the easiest way to interview someone is just ask them a simple question, hold the microphone in front of them, and just keep it there and just nod and don't say anything, and people just go and go and go, and you're absolutely right.
That's why I started chewing gum as a reporter, because I'd ask a question and then shut myself up while they hung themselves.
That's nasty.
It is uncomfortable though, isn't it? We all want to fill that silence.
Yeah, you want to fill the silence.
Although I've got to say, in my council career, that sometimes I've just craved silence.
That's usually afterwards, Bunty.
Yeah.
Isn't it you saying, I wished I'd remained silent?
Yeah, it's nice and quiet under my bed as I hide from everybody. What are we actually, who's leading this? Is Paula going to lead this, is she? Or?
Yeah, she's on her way.
Yeah.
So Ewan, have you got your, like a green robe on or something? Is there going to be like a walk to a throne and a doof sort of thing? Or
Margaret is going to take a sword and lop off. No.
What am I going to do?
What's the theme music?
An organic source for trees.
I've seen her angry on the side of a netball court. Do not give her a sword.
Oh, no, I wouldn't want her angry. You wouldn't get angry with me, Margaret?
No, it's a former self. I'm not like that anymore. I'm trying to be more centred, more focused.
Yeah.
Have you got an acceptance speech worked out, Joe?
I'm just finalising my notes now.
Wow. Go you. Awesome.
No, I'm just honoured to be part of the committee. No, I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. It's going to be awesome having you there officially. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I saw a great joke yesterday. I found a thread on Reddit of great protest chants of history. And one of them went, what do we want? More cats. When do we want them? Meow.
Very good.
Somebody get the mayor quick.
What do we want? Time travel. When do we want it? It's irrelevant.
Right. Sorry. Well, everybody trying to call me to find out why I wasn't on. It took me even longer to get on, didn't it? But anyway, cool. Sorry about that. All right. This is just a very quick item. Amy, do we have to do any formalities before it?
Yes, so we'll still need to do apologies, confirmation, declarations of interest, as per usual.
Open the meeting. Apologies. Are there any apologies?
Just for my bad jokes.
No apologies.
No apologies.
Conflicts of interest? No.
Can we just confirm the agenda, please?
Oh, sorry. Confirm the agenda, which is just one verbal thing, really straightforward. Any conflict of interest? No. Okay, thank you, councillors. This is a pretty straightforward item. Ewan has agreed to be part of the Environment Committee for a couple of reasons. Firstly, a personal interest in developing that portfolio and to assist with Margaret and Sarah across the body of work. That has been negotiated with Chair Margaret and Sarah, and everyone's happy with it. So I'm happy with it. I think it will enable us to make some progress on the work and give that committee that much needed support. And just to, not that you're not doing a good job, guys, I think it would just add strength to your bow. So is there any question? Does anybody have any questions about this? No, hooray. All right then. So I'll move that Ewan be appointed to the Environment Committee. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor. I've already got Jeff Taylor. Is that okay? Or are you happy for Margaret to second? Oh, Margaret, you second. Thank you. Thanks,
Margaret.
Jeff.
Thank you.
Seconded by Margaret. All in favour, please. Are we going to do the little handy up thing? Yes. Raise your tick the yes button.
I don't have a screen, so I have to verbally support the motion. All right.
Okay. So raise your hands. And anybody dissent? Angela, are you raising a hand? Angela?
Your video's not working.
Hang on. Yep. Yep. My little green hand. My video's not on yet.
Okay. Cool.
Carried unanimously.
Okay, so that's unanimous. Thank you. That's it, and I'll close the meeting.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, Dave, that's how you do a short meeting.
Yeah.
Do I get the record for the shortest ever?
You do. That's a surprise.
We've had a 7-minute meeting, and it's 9:38 now, Paula. So you miss out by a minute.
All right. Fair enough.
I look forward to working with you, Margaret and Sarah. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ewan. And yeah, look, I really appreciate your support for us in this space as well. It's going to be great. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Good to have you on board.
Yep.
Cool. Bye, everybody.
That was moving. If that's all you wrote, Ewan, I'm very disappointed.
Right, we're going into the briefing now.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so we're into the briefing. I think, Mark, you're chairing the first session, is that right? Or was the second
session, I think. The second and third ones.
So the first one, I don't think I'm chairing it. Who's chairing this one?
Hang on a minute, let me just have a look here.
Can we stay on this one?
Yeah,
or do we have to
just stay on this one. Stay on this one.
Stay on this one, please.
I think
just make sure the appropriate staff have got this invite.
We have.
Oh, you have. Okay.
So parking. So
the parking one's in open, I think, Paula, isn't it?
Pardon?
The parking one is in open, I think.
Yeah, we are in open.
Oh, yeah.
Live. So Jeff, you're chairing this item, being as it's related to your work. Are you?
It's Eva Lisa should be, shouldn't she?
No, Eva Lisa's here. Yep. Yeah, Eva Lisa. Oh, that's right. Of course, it wasn't Jeff. Eva Lisa, are you going to? She's connecting. Are you going to lead us out on this one? Who's speaking to it, please? I've got Jason, Melissa, Catherine and John as potential speakers to the item.
Yeah, and see, this is what I'm saying. They're not here, so maybe they're connecting the other meeting with the briefing. That's my point.
No, there wasn't
the
a
same link for both.
There wasn't a different link, Angela, but Eva-Lisa's here now. The other ones need to come on board. Eva-Lisa, are you presenting this, or it's Jason, or who are we expecting, please?
We were expecting the whole parking for the presentation. So we've got a presentation up on, so we have, so we're all here just on one screen. So hopefully that's easier for everybody.
That's perfect, thanks. That makes sense.
So as part of, hopefully everyone can hear me. I've turned the volume up because it's running through TV. So.
No, that's fine, thank you. It's good.
Okay. We have Jason Harrison here today. We also have Melissa Clark, and we have John Purcell here in terms of presenting parking. So today is, just to set the scene, today is about hearing from elected members. So the presentation is very brief and it is about questions for elected members. So it's not about going over information that we've already presented in previous briefings or updates. So we've got pictures. Unfortunately, due to COVID and Alert Level 2, we did want to have an interactive session to actually physically show you some of the technology. So you can actually touch and see it, but we haven't been able to do that. So there are some pictures, and we will just get elected member feedback from today, or in terms of a guiding document to be reported back through the CBD Advisory Group, through Infrastructure Operations Committee, and through the Strategic Growth Committee. So I'll just hand over to Jason, and he can talk you through the purpose of the report.
Do we have the PowerPoint up? All right, thank you, Carmen. If we can just go to the first slide, Carmen. So just to set this context, what we're really after today, elected members, is just seeking your guidance for staff on a number of things. So we've got some parking infringement innovations and parking meter technology we just want to share with you, as well as the on-street commuter parking options. So those 3 bullet points, once we've got guidance from you guys here, we'll look to develop up a report that will go to the CBD Advisory Group first, and then onto the Infrastructure Operations Committee. And the reason we're bringing this to you is, I don't know if you can recall, but on the 30th of June Infrastructure Operations Committee meeting, there was a resolution passed around the 2 hours free parking, but in there was a recommendation from the CBD River Plan Advisory Group that we extend 2 hours free parking to the 30th of June 2021 to align with the completion and approval of the Central City Transformation Plan refresh. Now that's quite important. So for us to be able to align what we're doing with the CC, we've got some the parking and as well as the on-street commuter parking options is quite key for us in terms of what we are actually delivering. And you may recall in the annual plan, you've increased parking revenue by $400,000, and that was primarily to be achieved through on-street commuter parking options. So the other thing we want to talk to you about today is creating a framework that will then allow us to develop what we're calling parking plans. So the first one that we want to do is for the Central City, and again that aligns with what we're trying to achieve in terms of the strategic focus of the CCTP. Have you guys got any questions? I was hoping we had a face-to-face, so it would be more interactive, but are there any particular questions from what you've read in the pre-reading or from what I've said today that you just want to capture now? I can capture now, make sure that we cover off as we go through this presentation.
Are there any questions, councillors?
If it's okay, there's stuff through it I'd be keen to know about. But I was just wondering, is Jeff around, or is
he doesn't appear to be on the call.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll wait.
Okay. All right. Well, look, the way the presentation's been structured, we'll go through the parking technology slides first. So I've got John here, he'll talk to that, and then if there are any questions that come up, we'll just answer those along the way. So John, so Carmen, do you want to put on that slide there that shows the parking infringement innovation? On the next slide, please. Thank you. All right, mate.
Yep. Morning, people. Hey, looking at over a number of meetings, we've talked about managing managing parking, and we talk about hospitality area and bits and pieces like that as well. We've had some significant issues around safety of our staff, and what you're seeing on the screen now is a car with Auckland Transport. This has just been developed, and I'm proposing that we follow suit. There's been a lot of investigations to go into this for Auckland Transport, and they're using it to manage a portion of the on-street infringements, and I'm looking to use a similar technology to identify non-compliances around the city in a more safe way for staff. It'll be a lot more efficient, more productive, as in we'll cover a much wider area. With this gear, at the moment we've got 7 wardens. We're seeing occupancy rates in the city going up, and a lot of that is through abuse. What we need to do is we need to make people more compliant with the restrictions that are there, and we need to cover more area, and this vehicle will allow us to do this. I've actually got a quote on that gear, and each car will cost us, well, I'm sort of thinking that we need 2 cars, but we could start with one. One vehicle would cost us in the vicinity of $119,000. If you put that into context, and I understand, Councillor Bunting is very against infringements, and I understand that there would be no infringement revenue if everyone was compliant. This vehicle would allow us to not only monitor the CBD to a higher level of compliance, but it will also help facilitate the commuter parking that we're talking about in the future. If you imagine we start to charge people, like an all-day commuter fee for a park that is a restricted bay, but they don't get caught very often, you'll see that they'll move from that into other restricted bays. And let's use the eye clinic at Bridgewater as an example. We've had a couple of SRMSs from Bridgewater saying that the parks down there aren't monitored enough, and therefore their customers and elderly clients, people with vision impairment, can't get parking close to their clinics and things like that. If we put a massive commuter parking down there, the tendency in the first instance will be for those people to not park in the places we were sort of going to charge all-day commuter parking, and possibly abuse the spaces that are adjacent to it just around the corner. So we will need to manage the commuter parking and the time-restricted spaces around it, and this facility will allow us to do that. If we talk about the $119,000, these things, and I don't want to get into a whole argument about how much money we can generate out of infringement revenue. What we really were looking for is compliance to the rules that have been set in place, and the things that you guys gazette restrictions to manage businesses and things around our city. And this thing, this technology will allow us to manage that compliance to a much higher standard than we can get around at the moment. Any questions about the car? The gear's made by Genetech. The company that actually integrates it with an infringement management system at the moment is Datacom from Auckland. The system would be very efficient, as in that as the vehicles went round and identified non-compliances, a number of wardens would sit in the office and look at events that are non-compliant, and then identify whether they're a ticket or not a ticket. And when they identify through the visuals that are coming back, they would say, yes, this is a ticket, and that system would go straight into our infringement management system. There'd be no writing it through a handheld, an inefficient thing. We've got a price in amongst this to actually integrate it directly into our infringement management system. So it'll be about a warranted officer vetting that the actual non-compliance is valid, and push the button, and a ticket would be written and a notice would be posted out probably the next day.
So,
Hello, John. It's Jeff. It's Jeff here. I do have a question, if that's all right, unless someone else is. Yeah, look, thanks for this, and it's pretty exciting stuff. So it would potentially make the enforcement of the 2 hours free system more efficient as well, because it'd be easier validation.
I believe yes. Like the 2 hour free does have some integrations in there that make things difficult, but yes, it will do that. And also, if you imagine that we started looking at LPR when you were talking about the hospitality area not being able to be managed after hours, and we were concerned about the safety of our staff. This is one of the things that have come out of that, because I'm sure our staff would be happy to drive a car around the street at 8 o'clock at night rather than walk around and have glasses thrown at them and bits and pieces like that.
Thanks, John. I was just going to raise that because we've been for a couple of years wanting to just make it slightly later in the hospo area, because people struggle to get parks when they go out for dinner and stuff, because staff tend to park there. So and, that's great stuff. Thank you.
So Councillor Mark,
Mark. Sorry. I'm just trying to look across the.
All right. So let me just establish how this works. So there are 2 cameras on the top of the car. They drive along, snap the number plate, and that goes back and corresponds with the software. Is that right, John?
Oh, yes, it does. Yes.
Right. Okay. So I'm just trying to visualize this in Victoria Street when it's, bumper to bumper traffic, and our CBD where it's bumper to bumper traffic. Are these things going to be holding up cars, or how long does it take to snap the?
Oh, no. These things will be able to drive at road speed, and I think road speed, especially in Victoria Street, your road speed is very low there. But I'm not expecting them to have to go much faster than 30 kilometres an hour, but I don't think that would be holding people up in our CBD.
So they can cruise along at 30 k's an hour and go snap, 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 snap.
Yeah, yes, they can. Yeah. And
that technology can keep up with it at the other end and go ticket, 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 or whatever it does, or register.
What we're looking at is we're looking to identify the cars that are parked and what time restrictions and other restrictions are there at the time. Like obviously there's a lot of things that can spin out of this. If we manage to get a white list from CCS, we could sort of see whether a car with a registration plate is allowed to be in a mobility space or not. If we integrate it with the police, I've had conversations with the police operations manager, and we don't want to know about it, but if the police want to know where cars are, they could upload a white list into the back of our system. That can be done every 15 minutes. And if there's a car that they want to know about, the police can manage that.
Thank you, John. I guess where I'm heading with this is, if we've got that technology that can do that, why are we at the moment walking around and putting our wardens at risk by asking them to put tickets under wipers? Because that's when they're getting into trouble and getting harassed. So can they not just have a camera that goes snap, 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 snap as they walk?
Auckland Transport, who've got millions of dollars, have, I think the article came out within the last month. They're only just sticking this on the street, and they're not using it as a matter of course. They've still got wardens walking the streets as well. They're using this for a specific option up there. I'm looking at sort of taking a next step and sort of saying, hey, can a lot more of our compliance be done like this? There's still the with guys in blue suits walking the street, it gives the public the perception that there is management going on, and so there is that that factor of sort of associating the blue suits walking the street with some controls going on. So I think that that's still fair enough, as long as the amount of encounters are reduced, the amount of risk that we're putting them at is reduced as well.
I guess what I'm trying to find out, John, is that this is the beginning of sort of like an RFID. As you go into a car park in the for example, at the airport, they snap your number plate.
Yep.
Now it's quite different to scanning the registration as they do at the moment.
Yes.
So that actually opens up more than just a car discussion, doesn't it? That means that we could be putting cameras in town to pick up radios and all that kind of stuff.
I think when you look long term, and what I can see, and the NZTA needs to work with this, is that a car should become its own cost centre. You should associate your credit card with a car. If you use a tunnel, if you use a pay road, if you park in Hamilton, if you use a car park, your car should be the cost centre with your credit card attached to it. But that's a conversation for about 10 years down the track.
You really think so? Do you really think it's that far away?
I'm not sure. Like like obviously NZTA, they need to put chips in their registrations so that you can top them up online and things. They've got a lot of work to do there, and I haven't had a look at what they're developing at this point in time.
Okay, no, I could go all day, so I'll let other people have a crack. Thanks, John.
No worries.
I don't think there are any other questions at this point.
Councillor Ross.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Ross. Thanks, Evie. I can't see everyone because of the screen sharing.
Okay, I've got my hand up.
Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation, John. Do you envisage that the vehicle would be used? I mean, we've been talking about the CBD in the discussion thus far, but would you envisage the vehicle being used in other parts of the city? And
Absolutely, Rob.
I'm alluding to, the parking issues at Te Rapa, cars parking over driveways on yellow lines, around schools at certain times of the day where people just park wherever they feel like it. Do you sort of envisage that the car would be, being used 12, 15 hours a day to pick up on different parts of the city where you get regular complaints?
I do. I think that we're heavily under-resourced to manage the total across the city. There's still the need for an educational approach, and so what this car will do, it'll be able to take a bulk of the mundane work in the CBD, I suppose, and we can do the university and Frankton and Chartwell and all of those areas that come up. When there's been a request by a member of the public through SRMS for attendance over something, the things like parked over a vehicle driveway would probably still have an officer freed up to go and attend to that. And that's part of the educational approach that we actually run here. So they find out what the situation is and why this is occurring. But yes, the cars would basically free up some of the resources that we've got now to actually more fully cover our sphere of operations.
Yeah, that's great. I know that you talk often about the educational process, but when does that stop and ticketing start? I mean, my experience around picking grandkids up from school is that the same people do the same things most days. And you can tell them or warn them once, but they'll come back and do it again if they know that there's no policing.
And we're aware of that, and we do deal with that. Like the old Clearway, when our guys used to stand on the Clearway, was a prime example that a car would stop 30 metres away from the warden. They'd be kiss their hubby goodbye. They'd hop out of the car, and the warden's almost here, and then they drive off. And you see the same car time and time again. So I suppose it is that fine line. We are looking for a much higher level of compliance because as we increase compliance, and I've been saying since 2012 to my guys, it's not we don't put out a quota. We don't have a ticket take that we're adhering to. It's about delivering the transport strategy. And if there's full compliance and our infringement revenue drops off, then Hamilton will be actually a greater place to actually drive around. Safer, more efficient, less congestion. You know what I mean? Like there's so many benefits if the transport strategy is delivered. And that's what my guys focus on, is delivery of the transport strategy.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Maxine. I see Maxine next.
Thank you. I guess that you're suggesting one car at this stage and potentially more into the future. Can you give us some kind of understanding about what impact that might have on the workforce and how those impacts might be managed?
Yep, sure. So obviously a person would have to be driving a car. The car would be quite a lot more efficient. There would be the need for people to review the events that are coming through from the car in the office. So a number of our people that are walking the street at the moment would move into the office environment as warranted officers and would be assessing the information that's coming in from the car that's circulating, identifying whether it's a valid infringement or not, and they would be dealing with raising the infringement within the system. The other officers would be able to be involved. Like we've got one service request officer at the moment, and I believe that we probably need one service request officer for each side of the river. So another person would be able to manage our customer service requests. So that would give us a quicker response to the public for their requests. Our requests have gone up by over 1/3 in the last couple of years. So we've still only got one response officer. So we need a couple there, a couple of people in the office. We'd probably need another adjudicator. We'd probably source that from the ranks of the parking officers themselves.
So in terms of responding to your question, Councillor Van Oosten, what we're wanting to have with this new technology is that instead that our existing wardens would be able to do their educational and functional role. So instead of continuing to grow the wardens as we grow as a city, we're looking at technology to support the wardens in their role. So it's so I guess for us, it's understanding, instead of recruiting 3 more wardens, could we recruit a vehicle and have the wardens actually go out and do the education, work with the schools and the parents, and have that type of one-on-one contact in a safe environment, and not have to walk the streets at night. So having this car again being that safety intervention and engineering solution to that, the risk to our people.
Great, thank you.
Ryan?
Thanks, Mayor Paula. To staff, just wondering, I know the report you've attached speaks to a lot of other things as well, like the park and ride. Is that sort of part of discussion today, or is that a bit further afield in terms of feedback you're looking for?
Yeah, so the report you're referring to is the Hamilton Parking Management Plan. So yeah, we're not looking to get into the detail of that. It was really just to let you know where we had got to with the previous council. So I could probably talk to that a bit more when we get to the guidance around the parking principles, that 4th bullet point, Councillor Ryan. So because I can see that conversation taking a while to go through. So can we just park that one?
Sure. Yeah, sure. I'd just like to put a pin in it in terms of, I guess, the likes of the theatre development in 2 years' time, and how we might have a really, really good park and ride system through the city and some really good flowing networks. So I'd be keen to explore that more as well.
Okay.
Sarah.
Thanks for your work. Just woke him up. I was just interested, so is this car are we looking at it being a trial and then looking at increasing the number in the future, just in terms of, is this something that we'd need to consider in the long-term plan, or?
Yeah, so the car, we would purchase the car, like I think it's the way of the future, and that we would continue with one car. If we found that that's not enough to actually cover University and Frankton and Chartwell and all of those areas as well, there is cost savings to be made. Obviously, the system that runs it would already be in place, and so it'll be just the costs that are surrounding the car fit out itself that would be duplicated, and that's so I suppose when you look at one car, you're looking at $119,000. You look at 2 cars, you'd be looking at $175,000, if you know what I mean. So
yes.
So yeah, I would say let's run one car. Obviously, cars go down for servicing. Who knows? Someone might crash into our car or anything like that. 2 cars is more sort of reliable than one car. But if we want to test their water and see how we go, I'm happy to make a start with one car. Is there money for it? Yes, I've put money under LP license plate recognition into PSODA for the long-term plan. So when you come up and see that, please sign that off. That'd be fantastic.
Cool, thank you. Another thing was just around education. So along with sending people out when there are specific infringements or complaints, are there other ways that we could, or what other ways are we educating people? And are there other opportunities with this particular system? Like, could it automatically write like why, you know, it's important that they're not doing this thing? Like if they park on a footpath, you know, actually, do you realise that people on wheelchairs or bikes or scooters or whatever can't get past when you do this?
Yeah, hey, we can do that, and we do a lot of educational work out by the schools. We do that all the time now. Rob's already alluded to that. You know, the days that the wardens are there, that the schools will run at a higher level of compliance than the days they're not there. And you can talk to the principals. The next day, when the wardens aren't there, it's back to normal. So whether we actually put some, you know, like extend this in the future to have some fixed boxes like they used to have with speed cameras around a school where there's significant issues and they don't know whether there's a camera in there or not, maybe that would improve compliance over time. But one of these things is that when we talk to people on clearways, which we do regularly, they know that it's a clearway, but they're only stopping for 5 seconds to drop someone off. But the bus behind them that's got a full of people trying to get out of town, they're not really interested in that person only taking, which the 5 seconds turns into a minute, but they're not really interested in that. They just want to get home as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So how much education do we do?
Yeah, so we can tailor it as we go. To make sure that the benefit to the community and the understanding of why we're doing, not only what we're doing, but why and the impact on others around them, so that there is that educational stream. Yeah.
And if it's, thanks, Sue, Lisa. And if it's an issue at schools, I mean, if there is a particular issue at schools, I mean, also are we talking to the kids? Because often actually kids are good enforcers of their parents' behaviour.
Yeah, we do that.
Yes, we do. So our travel demand team talks to them all the time. So they don't only just educate them about riding bikes and schools. They talk about talking to their parents about parking properly.
Oh, yeah. All right, thank you.
It's a curly one, that. Councillor Forsyth. Margaret.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you need to ring me back?
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
It was just a comment really around what you said, John, about just really trying to fulfill the parking plan, and it's not about gathering revenue, and it's not about catching people out. It's really about trying to shape behaviour and fulfil the objectives of the plan. Look, it's not a question, but I just wanted to say that that's really appreciate that approach, and I know it's directed from governance, but I think that's really crucial as far as relationships go, and that it's part of the education that we're here to support people to park. We're not here to basically keep gathering revenue and trying to catch people out. So I think that's a really important piece of education, important piece of information that we can keep passing on. I just want to congratulate you on that approach.
Thank you. Yeah.
I don't see any other questions. I didn't. I missed anybody? No. No more questions on that? Okay, we'll carry on, please.
Further to the parking and innovation, so there is a report coming to the Infrastructure Operations Committee with further detail. And so we'll just move into the parking meter technology. So you're seeing there's a white blank area. So if you could just put your mobile phone into that space, because that's the third piece of technology on that presentation, which is our smart parking app. So you can actually just use your smartphone, and then there's other parking meter technology options, which John will just run through. In terms of seeking guidance from elected members as to what we're wanting to see and gather more information to come back to elected members. So this isn't a decision, this is actually just guiding us as to what we need to delve into to get more information and bring back to elected members.
Yep. Cool. Okay. So I think everyone will be aware of the machine that's on the left there, which is the existing machine that we have in Hamilton. I suppose there's two tiers here. So the blank space on the right with your phone picture in there, which we've already promoted. Like we will always use bring your own technology as our preferred option of people making payments and parking related activity. So the thing is that when I talked to one of my colleagues in Westminster City over there in London, they made the decision that if you can't pay with your phone, don't bother coming into the CBD. It's quite a blunt sort of a very blunt sort of a statement. And I suppose that's where it comes to you guys about where is the, what would be the uptake of the community if you were to decide that the mobile phone was going to be the only avenue for making payments in the city through smartphone. That would obviously save us in the vicinity of $250,000 to $300,000 worth of devices that you've got in front of you. The reason, and I know that Angela will be, she doesn't really like the metro light on the left, on the right-hand side of that picture of 2. It is exactly the same as the ones that we've got on the street, except it isn't attracting the abuse, because the ones on the left in the picture of 2 has a connotation that there's cash held in the machine. These machines are getting broken into, like a couple of times a year, and they do cost us between $12,000 and $14,000 per machine to replace these things. Obviously, the machine on the right will be a tap and go only device, so we'd even take that card reader out of there. So there is obviously no money on street. There's less risk to the public from getting cash out in the public. There's less risk from my staff not having to pick this up, and there's less risk to council finances not actually storing money on the street. There's no way that I'd want to put any more of the cash handling machines anywhere other than in the CBD if we continue to want to have a cash handling device, because they just get knocked over. Sonic Car Park's been knocked over, the Founders Theatre's been knocked down, Museum Car Park, they got $6 out of that. It cost us $14,000 to replace. We need to move forward, and I suppose question number 1 is, would you condone a bring your own device only approach? If not, I'm then suggesting the metro light on the right hand side, which is, you can see the screen is exactly the same as what we've got now. The interface would be through near field devices, so your Apple phones and your smart chip cards and bits and pieces will interface with that device. They're less intrusive, and we would probably need about 35, 40 of those around the CBD to actually manage the on-street CBD.
Okay, I can't see anybody. Let me just have a look.
Yep, my hand's
Angela.
up.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you. Yep, John, you're right. I don't like those ones. So, but you're talking about the right one, the ones on the right on the picture, eh? Like the skinny ones. Yeah.
The skinny little one.
Yeah. The issue that I have is when I was in New Plymouth, the ones on the left were everywhere. And every time I went to use them, there was always seemed to be an older person and in front of me who had problems seeing the buttons. And then I also had problems seeing and actually even using the buttons. You're saying that would also interface with a smartphone?
Yes. So the machine itself wouldn't have to. The machine itself would be the standalone device that would take any on-street payments or validations and bits and pieces, but you wouldn't have to interface your phone with it unless you were wanting to pay at a machine with a Google's Google Wallet or whatever. But if you had a smartphone, you'd just load the app and pay through there.
Oh, okay. So we would have, if we went with this system, we'd get rid of the, I don't know how many thousands of parking meters we have. And we'd have 35 to 40 of these stick things,
yes,
as well as being able to use your smartphone, or just smartphones, bring your own device.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'm really supportive of no cash. I completely agree with everything that you've said in that. In terms of my comments, I think people need to get over it and move on. Yeah. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
That's your $2 coin.
Yes.
I'll just go as I see them, so please bear with me if you went first, but I'll get to everyone. Councillor Ryan.
Thanks. Just to your question, John, if we went with a BYOD only, is it something we could transition in over 2 years or something so people get used to the technology, or does it have to have a complete reset?
Okay, so if we're going to transition, and I'm certain that over time, when we talk about the car becoming its own cost centre, that will be down the track. These sort of devices putting on the street have probably a lifespan of about 12 years. And I would say that over the period of time when they've depreciated to almost zero, I don't think that we will be replacing them again. And I think that when we talk back to the 2015 CCTP, that's what we talked about. And we had councillors worried about putting old technology on the street. But it's a necessary, unless we just sort of say, if you don't have a bring your own device, don't bother coming into the CBD. It's a necessary device to interface with our systems, because one of the big issues that we've got where we've fallen down at the moment is that it's not a totally integrated solution. And the LTT, the CCTP in 2015, it was all about a totally integrated solution. We need to have everything tied into the database. And it's when we get outside of that we end up losing information, and things become a bit of a nightmare to manage.
Yeah,
so if I understand,
the current meters on the street are past their life, and so where they do need to be replaced. So the coin-operated machines are almost a museum item.
Yeah.
Even
the company in New Zealand that supports our meters has shut down. They're not operating in New Zealand anymore. We can't buy parts for them. The only lucky thing we have is that we've got probably the last expert in New Zealand in managing those machines. So he's got a garage full of parts that he robs some from one machine and puts into another to try and keep them serviceable.
Yeah.
So just to sort of further that up, I think your answer was no. We can't do a transition. It's got to be a complete reset. Is that what you're saying?
The decision would be bring your own technology, or bring your own technology and kiosks. So there's those decisions for you guys. It's like bring your own technology only, or BYO in conjunction with a kiosk.
So the new technology is currently.
So there is the possibility to introduce a new technology and phase out the old technology. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
Okay. And
just so we're clear, Councillor Ryan. So what John's saying, that the new technology, like those smaller parking meter heads that we would have like 35 across the city, once we would put those in place, they would last about 10 to 12 years. Okay, so you would have that plus your mobile phone. Once the life of those parking meter heads is done, we wouldn't look to replace them. So over that 10 to 12 year period is what we would look to transition people away from having to pay and display to using their phone only. And I think that gives people over that period of time time to make that habitual, so they'll just know. So it's not a 2 year transition, it's longer than that.
Oh, that's heaps. Yeah, heaps will probably be microchipped by then.
Be good cost center too.
Okay, so Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, look, thanks, Mayor Paula. Look, I think we've got a unique opportunity here to send a very clear message that Hamilton has come of age, and that in fact, if you're going to park in the CBD, you bring your own device. And I love the term BYOD. The whole suggestion that we will spend 300,000 to invest in technology that we won't replace. I'd prefer to spend some of that money in a very clear, well-articulated education strategy about, hey, Hamilton's come of age. You need to come if you're coming into the city, you're very welcome, but bring your smart device. Now, as a country, we have moved forward rapidly, and a large percentage of people have smart devices, and people are becoming much more au fait and much more comfortable. In fact, COVID has helped with that. So I do not support the idea of spending 300 odd thousand getting 35 devices. I would prefer to say, let's be bold. Let's go out and say, as a city, we're a BYOD. Allocate some of money to a meaningful, well-articulated education strategy, and that's our position. So that would be my position. People may not agree with me, but the idea of investing the 300,000, I just think it's a backward step.
Thank you. Okay, I'll share my view in a minute, but I'll go to Maxine.
Thanks, Mayor Paula. I'm with Angela in that I think cash is gone now, and in the post-COVID or emerging post-COVID world, cash pretty much isn't accepted anywhere, and it's about cards and alternative payments. My concern, though, is that Ewan's right. There is a big pickup of people using smartphones and other technology, but it isn't universal, and there are groups of less advantaged people who, maybe in the lower socioeconomic group, that don't have the privilege of being able to afford a $1,200 or $1,500 cell phone in order to pay for parking. So my question is really, if we're moving our technology, of course, away from cash, what other options are there for people to be able to pay for their parking or ensure that they are compliant with that parking?
Okay.
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, really good question, actually. And I believe, especially when we talk about the car that you saw that's there in the future, if we can go with that, we may be able to find that it brings in a whole bunch of other things. Like if Hamilton City Council wanted to do a deal with gold card or something like that for aged people or whatever, and their license plate, it needs someone to maintain that. And but if their registration was in a whitelist somewhere, and they could then come in and be under the rules or whatever that we decide to set up, whether it be a discounted rate for superannuitants or whatever, and their car registration was on a whitelist that was in our database, and then they might pay from Commuter at home, or they might do some other sort of activity like that. So the advancing technology does bring in other opportunities. I suppose the tourists that are coming in, they're all full of Wi-Fi tablets and smartphones now to find their way around the country. So I suppose what we're looking for is our system to be available for throughout New Zealand or whatever. I've always wanted large market penetration, but yes, there are other possible opportunities. I believe we would also have quite a large educational presence. I would expect they would have some sandwich boards or some people posted around helping people load apps onto phones if they're not able to, if they're worried about that. I know my mum has got a smartphone, but she's not great at loading apps. But if someone showed her how to use it, and we could have quite an educational period for that. We adjudicate all of our correspondence that comes back, but we could also have a large online presence, and we could have different things that are called articles, and someone might sign up to an article and pay a certain amount of money and be able to use our off-street facilities or whatever, and our car goes past, it just sees that registration is in a whitelist and has been validated to park. You know what I mean? They can park wherever they like, and that's, I suppose, the benefit of it all being a totally integrated solution. As long as there's an entry around someone's registration plate, we can then set up the appropriate articles to deal with any of those situations. Does that make sense? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it does. Does though any of the technology that you're proposing have fast pay for credit cards, etc.? You know, my father has a mobile phone, he's a bit like your mum, and doesn't know really about the apps and the features of it, but he's got a credit card and can fast pay pretty easily with that.
Yeah, and I think that's another really good question, because I've heard a lot of people saying, hey, it's really expensive to use Payment Park. It may be expensive to use it if you're using it on a single basis, like I'm using my credit card today. Now, the 50-cent fee that surrounds that goes to the bank, you know, so if you're paying for a $2 car park, you end up paying $2.50 because you use your credit card. But if you sign up with an account and you put $100 in it, then every single transaction is free. You only pay the cost of the credit card transactions once. So I suppose, you know, like convenience does have an extra cost. And if you're just going to flash a credit card against, for instance, the PayWave device on a kiosk that's on the street, you end up paying the credit card transaction cost of that. Yeah, so I suppose the convenience does cost. Yeah.
And final question really is, it's a presumption that the first 2 hours is free, and then after that the payment is due. Is that correct?
It is. Currently, that's the situation. Yes, in terms of the decision and the CBD. Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor Paula.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. Or Dave?
Yep. Look, I'm glad Maxine raised those questions, because I agree with her. While the world is going towards having your own device, and I think Ryan's the most correct, will probably be chipped by then. Look, we absolutely can't leave people behind, and so we have to have another way. When we were talking, it's going back nearly 2.5 years now, about parking charges in the outer CBD fringe, we looked at a cell phone solution as the primary option, and a phone-in solution for the backup for those people that weren't in that situation. That may not be the best one, and I'm not trying to second guess the professionals, but we absolutely have to have a way of keeping, supporting those people to be involved in parking and whatever else we're offering as well. We can't assume that everyone will have a cell phone even in 10 years' time.
You can't. So what you're saying, that people won't have a cell phone?
No. I'm saying we can't assume that every single person will have that.
Okay.
So I'm really saying John gave several solutions just before. So I'm saying, John, keep recommending to us the best solution, but also the backups, like the possible backups.
Thank you, Dave. Actually, to follow on from that, and then I'll come to the other councillors. I'll just have my say following on from yours, because I think it's similar in the sense that I think I do acknowledge that technology is the way, but we have 2 bubbles of population in Hamilton. One is the very young, and they're all sweet with it. They do everything but brush their teeth with their phone, and so they're fine. I think it's the older citizens, which we still have a large proportion of, that we've got to transition into a new way of doing. And to be honest, those are the ones that really struggled with coins going from the meters to other ways as well, because transitional change is harder. I think the new transitional model that you've suggested looks quite good in my view, because it enables them to go to something a little bit easier, and will last us that transition period. In another 15 years time, I think the whole thing will be sorted for us by the time of those. So I'm a little bit leaning towards disagreeing with you in a little bit on this. I just don't, and it's a bit like, I know Martin talks about having the hard copy city newspaper too, for the same reason that technology does not reach everyone in their home the same way. My mother would be useless, and smart technology. Could try and teach her, but she'd probably still be useless. And that would to have potentially a detrimental effect on her choosing to come to the city as opposed to Chartwell, or dare I say the base, or somewhere else where she can just pull up. So we do need to think about that also. So I'm leaning towards transition personally. A bit of both. Kesh.
Thank you. Just a question around the payments on the meters. You mentioned that there'd be paywave capability. Is there potential to link the B card to the paywave system?
Yeah, actually, I had a bit of a go at Andrew Wilson, you know, some time ago, and I sort of said, well, you know, when you go to London, you just tap and go everything. Why is it just restricted just to the buses here? You know, but that's a conversation outside of my control. I think that you know, like in all, you know, things technology, there's credit loaded to a car, and as long as we have the interface, yes, in theory you could do that. Whether regional council want to join up with Hamilton City Council and say have a transport card that will pay for your parking as well, that's another conversation. Haven't gone down that track at this stage, but obviously, yeah, any of those technologies can interface. It's not a track that we've looked at this stage.
Perfect, because I think that would open up another bubble for accessibility. And then you mentioned talking about having a list of, I think you called it a white list of people who set up an account, top up an account instead of an app. Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
So could that, because I assume when you download an app, you have to have login details and link it to a number plate anyway. So could that then be open to everyone and not just superannuants?
Yeah, hey, look, all we're talking about is databases, and when we talk about whitelist, we're talking about a field in a database that deals with a certain type of criteria. And so when I talk about interface with the police have a list of vehicles that are wanted to be known by the police. And so if you can imagine our cars going along, taking number plate, and if the police have, we've got an interface with them that we don't even need to see, and there's a car that's wanted to be known by the police, all of a sudden the police get a local thing sort of saying, hey, a vehicle that's got X ex-murderers in it or whatever is now in Victoria Street in Hamilton. Our wardens will be just driving along, all of a sudden a police car comes up behind them. We don't know anything about it. So that whitelist is available for whatever criteria we sort of decide. You know, we might sort of say, hey, we've got some large corporates that you know, like visit Hamilton all the time, and they want to park anywhere, but they want to still hop out of the car and walk away. They might pay a certain amount to Hamilton City Council through an account, and as our car goes past, it just says, hey, they're on the corporate whitelist and they'll pay a certain amount of money to park anywhere they like in Hamilton for as long as they want or whatever. So whatever criteria we decide we want to actually have, we can set up a whitelist for that. If we wanted to support superannuitants and things like that and say you've got a lower rate, and maybe they're going to have difficulty with a smartphone, but they've got a registration number, and they come into council and or talk to someone online and they set up an account for their car, maybe we could look after them as well. There is some inefficiencies around making sure that when that car gets sold, is it in the system still? Is it gone out of the system? Yeah, we already have trouble with CCS and parking permits and people using parking permits of people that you know, like have passed by and things like that to use mobility spaces. So there is some inefficiencies around some of those systems, but they're all things that we can look at. There is possibilities there.
So do we, is our system up to scratch where it could then link back to a rates bill, for example?
Those are the things that are future opportunities. So once we get our parking payment, like the new process sorted, then we'd look to bring on and how we can actually integrate into that one-stop customer shop for our residents, so that they can, so it's all there for them. But
perfect. And just something that you touched on, so with the cameras, you know, scanning number plates and all of that, do we already have does our software already link to the existing CBD CCTV system, or would it be completely separate?
The type of software is completely different. CCTV, City Safe is about visually watching, antisocial activity and things like that. Whereas this stuff is more specific about, there's software behind it that recognises characters and specifically number plates. It can actually recognise speed zones and things like that as well, and time restrictions and things like that. So it's not easy to combine the two things together. There is a little crossover. I did sort of talk about Sonning car park, where we end up with some antisocial activity there. We get some break-ins in cars, and if we saw a car coming into that facility, at least our city safe could be alerted early to say, hey, a car that's been involved in smash and grabs has now just gone into a car park where there's a lot of smash and grabs. Please turn your observation cameras on and watch them and call the police. So there's some close things, but no, they're not. It's not a duplication of the two.
Okay. All right. Yep. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Sorry, what are you saying, Mark, or are you going?
Yeah, Paula, you're on mute. Oh. Yeah. So I can see.
Sorry. I was just trying not to shuffle papers. Sorry, Sarah, and then Mark.
Thank you. So I'm very supportive of getting rid of cash. I think John put a very strong case forward for that. In terms of whether we transition with on-street meters, I guess I'd be kind of interested in actually doing some surveys or something of people to see, particularly, of those groups that we think may struggle with using apps, whether they would actually like using or would actually use those meters either, because there is a level of difficulty in using those too, and whether it's seeing the little buttons or actually kind of feeling confident to put all the numbers in and use your credit card and stuff. And I just wonder if it's actually going to be the same kind of barrier to using an app, and that we're kind of we're just making assumptions that they're going to be easier. Because I had a conversation with my mum and I was like, would you prefer using this to an app? And she's kind of like, maybe that, she doesn't love using these smartphones and apps, but she kind of thought, well, once someone shows you how to do it and you've set it all up, it probably sounds easier than the meter. Is there an opportunity to kind of talk to people about this and get some responses so that we can have a more informed view of what people would find useful?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why we posed the question to the elected members as the elected representatives of the community. You got Ewan sort of saying, hey, let's go with the low cost approach, no capital, bring your own technology way of the future. And then we got some traditional and transitional sort of thoughts. And I suppose rather than what we're just seeking is a decision from you guys to sort of say, what are the people of Hamilton wanting out of this? You know what I mean? Because honestly, bring your own device lowers our costs. Anyone drop a phone, we don't have to replace it, and a whole bunch of things like that. We don't end up with thousands of dollars worth of gear getting trashed. So yes, we can go out there. We can have some sandwich boards. We can do some surveys. We can put things into local press and bits and pieces like that.
Yeah, so we'd seek guidance from elected members as how you would like to engage, because it is important that the meters are coming through, and we're replacing them at the moment in the CBD area. So it's really important we go through the CBD advisory group to actually ensure that it meets their requirements and their plan and under the CCTV refresh, and get some guidance with that. But the community is also important too. So if elected members would like us to go out and actively engage and do exactly that, that's the absolute correct process and what we should do.
Yeah. Okay. And the other thing is, no, just comments really. Also, I guess I'd be very interested in also having, I'm open-minded at this stage, but if we were to have some options around how we could really educate people and provide alternatives that aren't a big barrier, because in the end it is, you know, about accessibility, and I think you know, everyone should have the ability to come into the city centre. And if it's a small learning curve, but we help people with that, or we provide alternatives, then that's okay. But I wouldn't want to see the barrier become too big that someone goes, it's too hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Okay. There's a lot of hands up still. Are they all coming around again, or?
Yes.
I've got Cash, Mark's next, and then yeah, if you have got your hand up and it wasn't supposed to be, if you can just pop it down, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. I just want to lend some weight to Ewan's argument. Personally, I think you know, having sort of tutted around in this parking sphere for the 4 years now, kiosks are probably an antiquated, backward, expensive waste of money. Sarah raised a very, very good point, and that is what makes you think that someone who can't use an app is going to get out and be able to navigate one of these kiosks. The only difference is we get them to walk to the kiosk. The whole premise of what we're trying to do with our parking offering is to, first of all, be able to control it, manage it easy with as little interference as possible, and secondly, the whole idea of the free parking to entice people into town was they had free parking or perceived free parking, and it was easy somewhere else. We've noticed that they don't walk as far as they want to, and here we are putting in kiosks that make them walk to a kiosk and try and navigate a kiosk. We're just adding another ugly, expensive, annoying step as far as I can see. I dispute, you know, I appreciate, but dispute Maxine's point about the elderly and cell phones. I think we always make that generation, that assumption that the elderly don't use cell phones. What we've seen with the COVID situation now is people have to scan to go in. The uptake, figures have shown that the uptake on mobile use by the elderly is huge at the moment. I don't think we have to run away from that. They are using mobile phones. Secondly, if we want to put any technology in, it should be smaller, more portable things that actually go into the businesses. So if you can't validate your parking by an app, there are posters on shops that say, come and validate your parking here, because we're dragging foot traffic into those businesses. Because aren't we trying to create some interaction between parkers, punters, and businesses? So let's get that interaction dialogue. We can obviously put it in eyesight, the libraries and things like that, and businesses who want to. We did talk about it with the CBD originally, and they were all, oh no, we're just going to get the wrong sort of customers in. But I've got a feeling they're a little bit more hungry now than they were for customers. So if people can go in, start a dialogue, maybe buy some chewing gum or whatever it is from the shops while they're there, do that. But I personally, every single kiosk I've used has been a pain in the proverbial. And it's another step in making parking or even interacting with our city a little bit harder. So I'm very strongly against the idea of spending $300,000 on kiosks. If you've suddenly found $300,000, John, to use, I'd strongly suggest we use it on a better app and a much better advertising campaign, because, you know, we can just leapfrog that, you know, that old sort of Model T Ford technology you're talking about there. That's just my opinion. So, yeah.
Mayor Paula, you're on mute.
I was on mute, and that was such a good joke. I said, thank you very much, Mark, and I'll get you to come around and teach my mother.
Yes,
you'd enjoy that. Cash.
I was just going to, I like the idea about the businesses, by the way, Mark, because that makes sense. Just wanted to quickly add the topic around older people with smartphone issues has come up in age-friendly meetings in the past, because they are working towards helping people with internet banking and things like that, where they have to do majority of transactions online now. So I think if we are transitioning to an app sooner rather than later, it would make sense to join forces with the age-friendly group who are refreshing their action plan at the moment. So we're not doubling up on, you know, doing the same thing, and we actually have a supportive group who are connected to that community already. Even if it were, we're going to an app only, but we've got a 6 or 12-month grace period to actually do the education properly, so that we're not leaving anyone behind.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else who hasn't spoken on this? Jeff, thank you.
Just very quickly, look, I'm along the same lines as Bunty in regards to the phone use. So I'm not in favour of kiosks. To me, it should be about the simplicity of park and walk away, pretty much. And I agree with Dave that it is we need an alternative for those who can't do that. Whether it's texting or something. I mean, even my dad's 88 and he texts all the time, so it is possible. But I'm just sorry. I think the kiosks, we'd risk putting those in, and to me, they'd be old technology pretty quick.
Cool. So where does that lead us, everyone? Oh, Margaret, sorry.
Thanks. Look, just to add weight to what the staff are looking for, a bit of a direction from EM. So I'm supportive of Mark's comments as well. I think we can do better than that. I can't believe that we can't have some sort of app that allows us to engage directly on the spot without having to walk to a kiosk.
Okay, thank you. And one question that I have is that Celebrating Age are supported by our staff and others to do what's it called? They train, not Smart Net or whatever. It's a program. It's not called that, is it, Cash? But it's a program for seniors where they can learn to use the full range of their devices. I wonder if we could just check in with them and the Celebrating Age Centre in general, just to get some intelligence from them about how that might work if we were to forego the transitional arrangement, which is my preference to do transition. But if that was the majority view, can we get some feedback from the Celebrating Age who do that training? They don't obviously reach everyone, but they do offer some programs stepping seniors through the new technologies. New technologies are changing all the time, though. So my concern is that their ability to change and then change again and then change again. I mean, they go into they just find it really stressful to go from one platform, one app platform to another, as it is. So we've got to remember that older people are less agile and able to pivot than the rest of us. There you go. Where do we go with this stuff?
So we've received some really good guidance for on further investigations and contacting and getting some feedback. It would be, as the devices maybe rolled, like in terms of a device rolled out citywide if required, I think the first area would be to talk with the CBD advisory group and get some guidance. But John, we will definitely contact the Age Concern Celebrating Age Centre for feedback and work through what the engagement processes could be in preparation, so not to go out and do anything until that will come back to elected members through the appropriate processes and advisory groups and committee meetings. So so I will talk with Chair Angela as to how we progress this through the right channels, if that's okay with everybody.
Do I have an opportunity to speak? I had my hand raised, Paula. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see it.
No, it's cool.
Please,
look, just very quickly,
do.
can we add? We do have an elders advisory group, independent through Professor Peggy Koopman-Boyden, that has significant intellectual capacity, obviously. So if we're going to be serious about our advisory groups, albeit that's an independent group, I'd certainly want to liaise with her. The other thing is Jason Dawson and Tourism Waikato. So I'm just thinking of the casual visitor to Hamilton, whether that's an overseas person or a domestic in a rental car, and kind of as we move to the new technology, how we make it easier for the casual visitors. You may have already covered that. I probably didn't hear it, but I would be interested in Tourism Waikato's expertise in that area. Obviously, you're trying to minimise the cost of your transition. Totally respect, within a period of time, then we're all going to be on smartphones, even 90-year-olds, hopefully.
Okay, so next steps on this
Sorry,
one.
if it helps staff, we've got an age-friendly catch-up, a steering group catch-up on October the 9th. So Eva Lisa, if you want to liaise, if that's quick enough for you guys, we can broach the subject. We'll bring you guys along to discuss it with them there, if that helps. I don't know if that's soon enough for you, but.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm just mindful of the time. This briefing was to finish at 11 o'clock because and then so that you have a break and morning tea.
So we've covered 2 bullet points out of 4.
We've had 2, and it's been fabulous feedback and conversation today. And so I'm just wondering whether if elected members are okay, because the next one is the on-street commuter parking options in catchment areas, and I know that will be a big discussion too. So they relate to the CBD catchment areas. So would elected members be happy if we took that through Deputy Mayor Taylor's CBD River Plan and Advisory, Central City Advisory Group, just to touch on all the details before we came back to elected members with the briefing? I haven't asked Deputy Mayor Taylor if that was okay, so that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine, and we'll bring it back for elected members. Yep. Yeah. Okay. If that's all right with everyone.
Eva Lisa, I just sent you an email on the process of that. So that's going to the advisory group and then back to a briefing, not straight to the committee. Okay.
Yeah, if that's okay. Yeah, so we just figure out details based on the conversation, because in terms of time frames, we're just mindful of time frames and but also taking the time to get this right too is really important. Yeah.
It's worth socialising with a broader sector too, because in my view, there are 13 of us and we do go out and we do talk to our community, and I get that, but we're not necessarily as representative of the broadest community as we could be, and therefore we do need to reach out and talk to other people as well, in my strong opinion. Okay, so are we done? Are we going for a morning tea? Is that it? Or has got something else to wrap up?
So the last bullet point that we just wanted to touch on was the development of the parking principles for our city and guidance on that. So previously, Melissa said to answer any questions. So I guess the guidance that we're wanting from elected members is that we have developed in the previous triennium our parking management plan. And from that process, we had an elected member briefing that urged us to continue with that piece of work, but taking into consideration the work that Melissa and the team are completing through Councillor Dave's committee on the Metro Spatial Plan work, so that they're actually aligned, because to avoid confusion. So I guess the question in terms of developing the parking principles, and it's about hierarchy of our parking citywide, not just in particular areas, and whether there's a parking management plan and whether that's hit the mark, which was sent as an attachment in the briefing conversations, or whether we'd like to start from scratch with an understanding of where we're at.
So we also, just to remind elected members, just prior to lockdown, we had a briefing talking about the wider Access Hamilton strategy development, so the whole of the transport strategy. And we did touch on this discussion at that time. And if you recall, the discussion we had then was the understanding that it's very difficult to develop parking principles in isolation of the wider transport objectives. So while we have an immediate need to give some guidance to our parking area management plans, we'd sort of discussed the fact that the parking principles, because what happened in the original parking management plan was we found that the work started to try and develop principles that became more and more high level and more wider, and they actually weren't parking specific at all. So we were trying to answer a bigger question through a parking lens, which wasn't really being effective, and we ran into a bit of trouble. So so what we're sort of, what we'd like to propose here is that actually we perhaps look at, rather than continue on developing the overarching parking principles for everything, we look at what we actually need now, which is a much more targeted direction for parking in our particularly CBD, but for those area management plans. So the CBD, I think, is the first one that everyone's talking about, and we focus on developing guidance for parking that reflects the objectives of the CBD plan, and that's what we do in the short term. And then working through Councillor Dave's committee, we put a bit of a fire under progressing, or the discussion around how we progress developing that wider Access Hamilton transport strategy, in which we will again start talking about parking, but from that wider lens, and how parking is an enabler of some of those wider transport objectives. But we can do that a bit more holistically, and as Elisa pointed out, respond to some of the guidance and some of the direction coming out of Metro Spatial Plan, and also some of the new government guidance coming out through the MPS for Urban Design and the GPS. So we need to be able to respond to some of those things as well that are just sort of coming out now. So in order to not hold us up right now, essentially I'm proposing that we look at a way of developing some more area specific here and now guidance for parking for those specific area plans. And so we'd like to know if that approach would be acceptable to councillors.
Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Southgate. Yeah, look, yeah, Melissa, I'm mindful that it's 10:57 and there's lots I'd like to say about this. I don't support these parking principles, but I just feel like now is not the right time. So I'm happy just to shut up at the moment, and I don't know if this can be moved to another occasion or something, because it just feels like we've run out of time. This does warrant a good discussion, or maybe we park this, so to speak, and come up with something new.
So this is under Angela's committee, of course, so need to give the chance for Angela to determine what the right process is for this work. It's
sorry, Angela.
Important piece of work. So given that we've got, how much time have we got for this item left? Because it is an important issue.
About a minute. Yeah.
About a minute.
So I'm just wondering.
Angela, do you think that this is something we should fashion into another discussion?
Yeah, because we haven't, this is the first time that the majority of elected members, including myself, have actually seen the draft parking management plan, so haven't had, so we are going to need that really quite robust discussion. And I'm sorry, but I can't actually find the parking principles. I've looked everywhere.
We haven't developed them yet.
Oh, right, okay. It's just Jeff said he was against them, and I'm thinking, God, he's found something I haven't.
And there's a report by the Cagney lot,
yes,
which is really the basis of it.
Oh, okay.
So in that respect, then what I propose we do is, Angela, that you take it all in hand and bring all those parts together and create another opportunity for us to discuss in full.
Yeah, will do.
Fantastic.
Is everybody happy with that? So now we're going on a break, after which, Bunty, you're going to chair the next session. Apologise for a bit late. I've just got to duck off to physio, but I'll be back. So I'll see you after the break. And
what do you guys reckon, about 15 minutes? Should we make it 11:15?
Okay. Yeah, I'll be a bit later.
Everyone happy with that?
See you then. I'll see you.
Apologies for lateness from me, Mark. I've got to do something with the River Explorer situation.
Good luck. Okay.
Oh, we're recording, aren't we?
Go well with that.
Oh no, it's a good discussion.
Okay. So yeah.